Hello, my friend. Welcome back, and hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to begin with Super Heavy tank prototype tests, and we'll wrap up with an update on Masten Space Systems. Let's start today's space updates with Super Heavy tank prototype B7.1's successful test with minor damages. As we can see, SpaceX teams for quite a long time have been developing prototype tanks for Ship and Super Heavy, along with other Starship developments in the Texas factory. These prototype tanks are meant for testing out the performance of Starship and Super Heavy boosters. These tanks also help in checking out the reliability and efficiency of new designs and manufacturing techniques without risking an entire upper stage or booster. The construction of such tanks from the same steel rings and domes that were used in Starship and Super Heavy makes it almost identical in shape, only much shorter than the original Starship stages. And Super Heavy booster tank prototype 7.1, or B7.1, is the latest prototype tank in the series of test tanks constructed by SpaceX. B7.1 was developed with 2 stacked rings and dome sections covering a height of 36 feet. It also contained a super heavy thrust structure and has stringers in the outer wall just like Starship boosters. Now, in SpaceX's history, generally test tanks were first used to validate certain design changes before they were implemented upon full-scale Starship prototypes. This helped them to avoid any risk from design changes during full-scale tests of either Starship or Super Heavy. But that wasn't the case with the B7.1 test tank. Booster 7 was developed earlier with almost the same design changes that featured B7.1 tanks. Moreover, the Booster 7 test campaign had started months before B7.1 had started its test phase. We know that B7 had completed multiple cryogenic proof tests and Raptor thrust simulation testing to qualify its new thrust puck and several other structural changes. And as per sources, by the end of June, SpaceX started the new test campaign of the B7.1 test tank 2. The test campaign of the prototype tank was soon followed by a sudden mishap that forced the Booster 7 back into the high bay, eventually halting its first Raptor engine test campaign. As per reports, the test campaign of B7.1 again started in the midst of July. And by the end of the month, the series of cryo and thrust tests were completed. The tests of B7.1 were carried out on a new test stand. During the most recent thrust tests, popularly called Can Crusher test, B7.1 was first mounted on the new test stand and was secured with hold-down clamps similar to the clamps found in orbital launch mount. For the thrust simulation, the cap-like structure was attached to the hydraulic cylinders placed on the base of the test stand with the help of sturdy ropes and cables. After completely securing the test tank inside the thrust simulation structure, it was filled with cryogenic liquid nitrogen. While the liquid nitrogen imitated most of the thermal and mechanical stresses of cryogenic oxygen and methane fuel, the hydraulic cylinders, on the other hand, had simulated the forces that the booster may experience during launch and landing by pulling the cap-like thrust structure downwards. According to some sources, SpaceX teams may also have added additional thrust rams underneath the B7.1 tank to imitate the thrust of 13 central Raptor engines of the Super Heavy booster. The most recent test campaign of B7.1 had lasted for 4 days. Out of the several tests in this time period, at least 2 tests have attempted to stress the tank over its limits. But still, the test tank survived, proving the robustness of the structure and design of the tanks, as well as the ship and booster itself. In the first crush test, B7.1 had a minor visual impact, which was a slight bending near the top of the tank. And in the second crush test, which was much more severe than the earlier one, It was expected that B7.1 would burst under continuously increasing pressure. But it didn't happen, and B7.1 just developed a minor leak. SpaceX didn't clearly state the objectives of the B7.1 test. As the Booster 7, which nearly has all features of B7.1, completed several tests, so the reason for testing B7.1 was not so clear. Some sources state that possibly SpaceX wants to find out whether Super Heavy Booster 7 can withstand the weight of a fully fueled Starship, or whether the booster can endure the total orbital flight path. It's now expected that B7.1 will be disassembled as nothing new can be found out from it. Till now, the fate of Booster 7 remains clouded due to the sudden mishap. Possibly, SpaceX may now go for Booster 8. Let's move to the final update for today. When Masten Space Systems filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on July 28, it had plans to sell one of its key assets to a rival. The company is creating a lunar lander for a NASA mission. In the U.S. Bankruptcy Court of the District of Delaware, Masten filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy petition. The corporation, which has headquarters in Mojave, California, stated that it has estimated liabilities of between $10 million and $50 million and assets between $10 million and $50 million. As per NASA's statement on July 29th, NASA received notification its payloads slated for delivery aboard Masten Mission 1 may be impacted by Masten business operations. The agency is working closely with the company to ensure that any potential changes comply with federal acquisition regulations. In the event Masten Space Systems is unable to complete its task order, NASA will manifest its payloads on other CLPS flights. The business is one of 5 that received NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services (CLPS) awards for sending payloads to the Moon's surface. In order to use its XL-1 lander to send a number of experiments to the lunar surface, NASA granted Masten a contract in April 2020 with an initial value of $75.9 million. Due to what the firm claimed were pandemic-related supply chain concerns, the mission, which was initially scheduled for 2022, was postponed until November 2023. The agency has already paid Masten $66.1 million of the amended award value of $81.3 million, according to NASA. As per industry reports, due to recent financial issues, Masten was forced to lay off a large portion of its XL-1 project team and put its workforce on furlough for the entire month of July. Masten has created a number of vertical takeoff and landing rockets in addition to its work on lunar landers to be used as technology demonstrators. In accordance with a contract with NASA's Flight Opportunities Program, the business provided those vehicles to researchers, including NASA, which utilized them to test out various components for the Mars 2020 lander. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your valuable feedback in the comment section. This will help us to improve.